Good afternoon. Today's topic is how to protect your wealth. You may be thinking, well, what does that mean? How to protect my wealth? Why do I need to protect it? What wealth? What do you mean exactly, right? And we'll get to some of those questions in this video today. We're going to be talking about 3 ways that you can protect your wealth. So first, what do we mean by that? Whatever property you've accumulated, how can you protect it? Pass it on, leave it to the next generation. All right. And there are many different ways. But again, today we're going to focus on 3 key ways you can do that. And why it's so important is because it will obviously not just protect it for yourself, but for whoever is coming on after you. So whether that be your beloved family member, it can be a charity, it can be a business, right? Whenever you decide or whenever you believe that okay, this is what I want to happen when I'm no longer here. That's what we're talking about. Okay, and your wealth. We're talking about obviously your physical assets, right? It can be your real property, which is your real estate. It can be your money, your bank accounts, all that stuff. But we've said in a few videos, and we'll continue to talk about it on this channel, that your wealth is also your knowledge. And there are obviously ways that you can impart knowledge on the next generation. And this is a freebie. You can start that by teaching them now. Okay. But today, let's get into the 3 key ways that you can protect your wealth. And we'll keep it short today. We've been going over a little bit the past few videos, but it's fine. It's a good topic. There's always stuff to uncover and discover about this. So first, obviously, it's through your plan, okay? Your estate plan. You can use estate planning to cover yourself and those that you love. And you can use your estate plan to decide who and what to leave your property to, and also even when. And this is key when it comes to trust. Trusts are designed for privacy and longevity, which will build on legacy. So, by having a trust in place, that means that you can decide who is going to get what for you. And with trust, you can put specific provisions as to when that will happen. All right. Very, very good for that. And another very key topic I want to hit on, and we're going to get into that more and more. Please stay tuned to this channel, especially as we enter into the new year, is going to be taxes. Okay, so we all heard the death tax, which can be smoke and mirrors, so don't fall for that propaganda a lot, but you don't want to have to pay more taxes than you need be. So right here in the state of Michigan, there is no inheritance tax. That means if you gain something from an inheritance, it's not taxed. But there is a federal, and there's no state tax for what you leave behind, but there is a federal estate tax, which is known as the quote unquote death tax. And that will come up for expiration in 2025. It's a very high bar for individuals right now. It's about 13 million. So that means that if you have 13 million of individual wealth, it is exempt from that tax. And it's combined for spouses. So 26 million that is exempt from that particular tax, but that is going down significantly in 2025. So you want to definitely make sure you're on top of that. And having a plan in place will help you to strategize how to reduce taxes, not to avoid, not to evade. That's not what we're talking about here. But can you minimize your taxes? Absolutely, you can. Okay. And that's going to be a big key of protecting your wealth. It's going to be a big key, especially if you're in that kind of $1 million to $10 million range. You want to pay attention. And like I said, with 2025 on the horizon, that's going to be a big, big deal. Again, not to say you need to strategize and make your whole plan and everything around it, but you definitely want to be aware. All right. And so proper estate planning is going to help you do that, because the more you have to pass on, the more you have to pass on, the less you want to pay in taxes, right? Because that just means the government gets more of what you want to actually give to whomever it is you're looking out for. All right. So estate planning is big in protecting your wealth. All right. Asset protection plans, all of that stuff. You can do that with these kinds of tools. And like I said, there are many different ways. Even with trust in and of itself, there are many different types of trust that you can use specifically for that reason. And so many others. Okay, we'll get into that. That's not the whole focus of the video today, but definitely keep in mind that trusts are a huge way that you can protect your wealth and benefit from it now and in the future. Okay. The second one we're going to talk about is property. So actual real property, your physical property. It can be a part of your trust, right? You can put it in trust. You can even put it in your will if you don't get around to including it in the trust somehow, or you can have it pass over there. But you can also use it depending on how you title the property. You can use it to protect your wealth and avoid the probate process and all that by using different strategies of who you're going to name on the deed. Okay, and this is very important. I do not recommend doing this without an attorney because I've seen a lot of people make mistakes where they can't then take that person off of the deed. And I've also seen people transfer it from themselves to another entity or another person, and now property taxes go up. Okay, so this is how you can do it. But I would recommend highly talking to a professional about it because there are some consequences you may not be aware of if you do it yourself. All right. But that doesn't mean you can't. Okay. So when it comes to real property, and again, I'm here in the state of Michigan, so it might be different in other states, but there are mechanisms you can use where you can put a joint owner on a deed. So you can have, two different individuals. This is common with marriage. Marriage is really the best kind of protection when it comes to this particular strategy. Obviously, unless you get a divorce, and then that's a whole nother issue. Okay, check your divorce decrees and your divorce attorneys. I'm not the one. Okay, but when it comes to like a husband and a wife, they both own the property together, and then whomever passes first, the other person will inherit the whole property. Okay, so that's the essence of it. That is called a tenancy by the entireties here in the state of Michigan. But there's also a concept where you can do it kind of without husband and wife called joint tenancy with rights of survivorship. I've seen this, and it's a very practical tool. You can use it and use it effectively. But like I said, you want to be very careful of who you put on there, of the relationships, and you want to be able to get some professional advice before going that route. I've seen it happen with parents and children, and they think they're kind of saving that probate process time, which they can, and it is an automatic wealth transfer, okay, but then they fall out, relationships fall out, and now nobody wants the property, or somebody wants it and the other person doesn't want them to have it, and they can't get their names off of it. Okay, when it comes to that rights of survivorship, that's a very specific right that it cannot be easily divided, if at all. Okay, depending on where you are, but it is a way to protect wealth. All right, and the ideal again is for everybody to get along like a marriage, right? And then the property will pass on. Okay, so for instance, with long-standing couples and relationships and marriage, I might have a client who was married for about 50 years, right? Had the property mortgage-free, no debt on it. Wife passed away. So instead of like the property having to go through probate and, kind of having to get reassessed and all that, right? Husband has the property now. So it's extended past the life of the wife, right? And now until whenever husband decides, or whatever he decides to do with the property. So that's why it can protect the wealth, because one thing, it's still in the family, and number two, based on that strategy, the property taxes do not increase. Okay, where I am here in the state of Michigan, there are very specific relationships that qualify for what's called an exemption. That means the property taxes would increase because the owner is different, but they're exempt under those relationships, so they do not increase. All right, so spousal relationships, children relationships, sibling relationships. All right, very specific though. So that's why I said you definitely want to check with a professional before doing these on your own, for sure, right? But also check with a professional to get some guidance on whether this is a good fit for you and your family. All right. And then there is another kind of mechanism we use here in the state of Michigan. It's called a ladybird deed. And the essence of that is that you keep the property, you have rights to it while you're alive, called a life estate, but there's somebody else on the deed that is named that can take over the property once you pass away. Okay, that's the essence of it. Again, we'll do a whole new video about just these kind of topics specifically, but I want to make you aware that these are options available to you, because right now you may not have something in place, or what you have in place may not be sufficient for you. So know that you have options, and know that your wealth can be protected. All right. Don't just expect Uncle Sam to come begging. All right. Or for the family to just go to court and start fighting. Know your rights, know your options at this point. Okay. And the last one, for how to protect your wealth, I call pass through or pay on death. And I talk about this a lot because this is a big one. Okay. And it is essentially just naming a beneficiary on your accounts. All right. Naming a beneficiary on your bank accounts, naming a beneficiary for your life insurance policies, naming beneficiaries for your retirement accounts. That's a big one as well. When it comes to retirement accounts, I do not recommend naming a trust. There is a very specific mechanism in place for retirement accounts. So you absolutely want to make sure that you talk with your professional advisor about who you want to leave that to. Almost 10 times out of 10, it has to be an individual. Okay. And this also goes back to the um, so-called death tax, the estate tax we talked about expiring in 2025. A lot of this was the result of the 2017 tax kind of overhaul. And so there were some very key changes, right, that estate planners had to be aware of. And retirement accounts was another big change there. So if you haven't looked at it in a while, this was 2017 again. So if you haven't, and it's often where you don't look at who is on the policy for a while, or maybe you haven't looked at what's in there for a while. It'll be a good time to freshen it up and see if your options have changed and see what changes you might need to make. Okay, but definitely protect. When we talk about protect, we're talking about, again, maximizing and keeping what you have as much of it as you have, without having to give it away to taxes or being lost in the probate process, or it just being lost from the family because nobody comes to claim it, or somebody else makes an adverse claim against it. Okay. And we want to make it as seamless as possible so that it goes on, so that there is this longevity, there is this legacy, and that can be done. All right. But again, it's all going to be based on proper planning. It's going to be based on property planning, okay, and then your pass-through planning, naming those beneficiaries. That's a big one. It seems like such a simple one, and sometimes I even ask myself, like, is that really helpful? But it is, trust me, because there are accounts out there right now. I've had cases where there have been significant amounts of money. Okay. Personally, I've seen where it's been at least $80,000 in a bank account just sitting there and nobody knew who the beneficiary was. Okay. And I shared this story a few weeks ago as well. If you think 80,000 isn't a lot, okay. How about 750,000? Okay. That is what was in an account of a gentleman's retirement account, at least. Speaking of retirement, he hadn't touched it, looked at it in almost like 40 years. And the person whose name on it was an old ex-girlfriend. I don't even think they were ever married, but her name was on that account. And guess who gets it? She gets it. Okay. Now his estate is fighting over it and saying, no, his brothers should get it. His brothers are his next of kin, right? His heirs. Because again, I don't think he's ever married. And so if you're not married, it usually go to the children. I don't think he had children. Then it will go to parents. His parents probably had already passed away. Then it goes to kind of sideways to siblings. So that's why his brothers were there. But again, when it comes to life insurance policies, when it comes to retirement accounts, when it comes to bank accounts, these are like third parties. They all have their own administration plans. They all have their own policies. That precedes what the court can do, because that's the contract you sign. All right. And so if you don't update those beneficiaries, they're not going to know who you want to leave that money to. They're just going to assume, oh, well, the person stood it, that's who it's going to go to. So it's your responsibility to make sure that those changes are up to date. And you don't want, in that case, $750,000 leaving your family and going to an ex-girlfriend that you don't even talk to, haven't seen in 40 years. All right. But these things happen because people they don't think about this often enough, or maybe they just think they'll get around to it one day and one day never comes. All right. But that's not you. That's why you're watching this video. All right. And that's why you know now that there are those 3 ways out there to protect your wealth: with your estate plan, with your property planning, with your pass-through planning, with your beneficiary accounts. All right. So keep these 3 keys in mind. With that said, if this has been helpful to you, please let us know. Like, share, and subscribe to the video. We are here every Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that means we'll see you again next week in September. Wow, can't believe we're there already. All right. For the first Thursday of September, I believe that's September 5th, same time, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on the channel. All right. Take care. Bye.